Well, pregnant women have been given the green light to get the COVID vaccine, being moved to the high risk designation. That hasn't stopped some from being a little weary about getting the jab, while others have rushed for the opportunity. I'm joined by Katrina DeSchiffert, producer for here at Context, who is 26 weeks pregnant and did get the shot. Thanks for joining me today, Katrina.
Yeah, thanks, Maggie. It's an important conversation.
It is. So, why did you decide to get the vaccine?
That's a good question. It took some time to do the research. I talked to my midwife, I talked to family, I talked to my husband, and really kind of weighed the risks between the vaccine and COVID. And when it came down to it for me, the risk of getting COVID and what that could do to me and my unborn child just outweighed the risks that were associated with the vaccine. So that's really what it came down to for me.
It's one thing to get the vaccine for yourself because you're an adult and you can make that decision. But having an unborn baby in your womb is another thing. Why do you think some pregnant women are hesitant about getting the vaccine?
I think it's exactly what you just said. You know, it's one thing to put something into my body,
Yeah.
but I'm carrying my child, and that needs to come first. And so many pregnant women, that's their number one question. That's their number one priority is this unborn child and taking care of it and doing everything that you can to make sure that they are as healthy and safe as possible. And living being pregnant through a pandemic is stressful
Oh,
enough.
yeah.
So that's the question that everybody needs to ask themselves. And I think when you do the research, when you talk to your doctor, then you can make a decision confidently as well and know that, you know, by taking this vaccine, I'm increasing the chances for a healthy pregnancy rather than taking a risk with COVID.
Hmm. Yeah, I cannot imagine what it's like being pregnant through this pandemic. I can't even imagine, Katrina, what you're going through and what other mothers are going through. What did that conversation with your husband sound like and look like? As you said, you weighed the pros and cons, and how that could affect the baby. What are some of the hard conversations that you guys had to have before you made that decision?
Yeah, for us, I don't know that it was really hard conversations.
Hmm.
I think, I mean, I have an incredibly supportive husband, which I am so thankful for. And talking it through with him, again, just kind of lifted that stress. And that's such a big part of pregnancy is you don't want to be dealing with stress this whole time. And I think before I had the vaccine, I was probably dealing with a lot more stress and a lot more fear as to seeing the variants and hearing what happens
Yeah.
to pregnant women when you do get COVID and the increased numbers in the ICUs and um, those all of those that are associated with it. That was weighing on me so much more. So when the opportunity came, you know, that conversation with my husband, it was actually really straightforward. You know, we both could kind of do our research, talk to doctors, and come to this conclusion that this is going to relieve stress for me. And that's really important.
There has been so much confusion over the vaccine, be it AstraZeneca or not, or Moderna or Pfizer. Were you worried about what vaccine you actually got?
Um, at the end of the day, no. I think
Mm.
getting a vaccine was more important to me.
Yeah.
But I also want to be honest and say, yeah, the headlines and the media got in my head with the blood clots and the risks. It's hard not to acknowledge that. You know, you can't ignore that when it's all over the headlines. But when you go a little deeper, that's with any medication that you're going to take. You know, every
Mm.
medication, you're going to have to talk to your pharmacist and they're going to say, these are the risks associated. They're low, but they're there. And you just have to take that into consideration. So, you know, I'll be honest, I got the Pfizer and it was a little bit of like, whew, okay, that's good. That's,
Mm.
you know, the one I wanted or whatever. But I didn't know till they were putting it in my arm, which one I was
Mm.
getting. And it wouldn't have changed at the end of the day.
Yeah. Last question. Fertility experts say that one dose is better than none, especially when we're talking about pregnant women. Will you get the second shot?
I am planning on getting the second shot when it's available to me. Timing wise, in Ontario, they have that 16-week gap. So I don't know if I'll get it before our baby comes in August or if I'll be getting it after. But regardless, I'm planning on getting it when it's available.
Yeah. I think what you said is so key too, Katrina. I mean, everybody has to make their own decision for what's best for their body. This is the decision that you made
Mhm.
for you and your unborn child. But what advice would you give maybe pregnant women who are just grappling with making this decision and looking at the pros and cons? I know you say do your research, but what is there any other advice you can give, expectant mom, especially maybe a first time mom? This is your second pregnancy. Because I think when you have your first child, you're even more, there's so much more sensitivity to, just not wanting to take certain risks. What advice would you give?
Yeah, I would say don't let fear dictate your decision.
Mm.
In terms of just make a decision confidently, I think. And there's a lot of fear around the vaccines. And we see that in the media. We see it all over our social media, especially. Um, and that can be crippling. And then you can just not make a decision, and then that stress just stays with you. So when I say do your research, I think that is really important, but talk to people that you trust. And when I say that, I mean midwives and doctors, and people who are really involved in what's going on. Because those are the people that are going to be able to give you answers that you can trust. And then you can make a decision confidently, and that fear can be minimized.
So, Katrina, you recently sat down with Dr. Carrie Bowman, who is a bioethicist, to talk a little bit more about the vaccine and how it could impact families. Give us a sneak peek of this interview.
Yeah, Maggie, I am really excited for people to hear this interview. Dr. Bowman talks about families making decisions around vaccines and all these questions that families have. How do we talk about the vaccines? So it's a great interview, and I'm excited for people to hear it.
All right, check it out on our YouTube page. Thanks again, Katrina.
Thank you.